On Dolphins. Today on the show, a look back at the last decade of Miami Dolphins football and my favorite games across that stretch.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Dolphins fans? Kyle Krabs, your host here on Locked On Dolphins, lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, director of scouting at thedraftnetwork.com, and your host here on the show. It's off-season content time, which means we're going to be focused on some more macro, big-picture fanhood items intermittently throughout the course of the next month until training camp opens. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On Dolphins listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement jewelry. Use code Locked On at checkout. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Dolphins your first Miami Dolphins listen of the day. Today, I set out across the last decade of Miami Dolphins football, 2012 through 2021. With the point being to identify my favorite games across that stretch of time, my favorite Dolphins games, and there was only one prerequisite. You had to win the game. I'm sorry, ain't no favorite games on this list that ended with the Dolphins L. So that made it pretty straightforward from my perspective. Okay, what are my favorite Dolphins wins across this stretch of time? So with that in mind, I would love to dive right into the list that I have. I have 15 games down, and my short list originally finished with 18, which is an average of almost 2 per season. Not a math guy, but I can do that one relatively easy. But I lopped 3 off and whittled this list down, and I think it's really interesting to see what the distribution of wins looks like. So this 10-year span for the Dolphins stretches from 2012 to 2021. In 2012, the Miami Dolphins head coach at the time was none other than Mr. Queasy, Joe Philbin. The Dolphins finished 7-9, averaged 18 points per game, 27th scoring offense in football, but 7th scoring defense in football. And here's what I will tell you. There is not a single game on this list that made my list of the favorite Dolphins games of the last 10 years. The most notable win would probably be you beat the Seahawks 24-21 at home, 435 yards of offense. This was the year Ryan Tannehill, 7-9 as the starter, rookie starting quarterback. But I'll go ahead and I'm going to pass over 2012 relatively quickly. 2013 is a busy year. I got 3 wins out of this schedule. The Dolphins finished 8-8. And you might say, well, it's a non-losing season in the grand lexicon of things that the Dolphins have accomplished. That's a pretty good showing, right? Well, not necessarily, because the Dolphins started the year 3-0, proceeded to fall to 5-6. So they went 2-6 in the middle of the season, but then won 3 in a row to get back to 8-6 before losing their final 2 in very Miami Dolphins fashion. But there were some memorable wins on this slate of games, including Thursday Night Football, Halloween, walk-off, sack, safety, Cam Wake. This is the number 1 game on the list. Now, these are not ranked in the order in which I prefer them. It's just chronologically how we're going to walk through them. You can order these in any order that you'd like. And if you disagree with my list, would love to hear what games you feel like I left off when we get to the end of the road. But the 22-20 overtime win with the safety against the Bengals absolutely had to be on this list for that moment by itself, which, if my memory serves me correctly, was the first time in NFL history a game had ended on a safety. The two other games were the games that pushed the Dolphins from 6-6 to 8-6. So 2 December wins for the Dolphins. They played at Pittsburgh and won 34-28. And if you remember, this was the game that the Dolphins were up 34-28, and Pittsburgh, in their last gasp effort, had the crazy lateral play where Antonio Brown scored, but upon further review, he stepped out at like the 9-yard line going in, and the Dolphins escaped with this miraculous win. Now, it wasn't good for my heart at the time, and I remember I jumped off the couch and ran out the front door in that game, and my dog got all excited and chased me, and then proceeded to just continue to jet right down the road. So I had to spend like the next 30 minutes after the game trying to collect my dog who had ran out into the neighborhood and was like out in the cornfields and stuff like that. So there's some fun personal memories that come along with that game specifically, but obviously you're 6-6. Your season, you felt like, completely slipped away. You got 3 divisional games left on the slate. You beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is always a big deal because of the heritage of that football program and how consistently good they've been for so long. That one stuck with me. And then the following week, you beat the Patriots 24-20 on a Ryan Tannehill touchdown pass to Marcus Thigpen in the final minute and a half of the game to take a 24-20 lead. So those 2 games in that season to close the year, plus the Cincinnati game midseason, were 3 really memorable games for me. And I was, at the time, that's 2013. I was 24 years old at the time. So really had been a Dolphins fan for a long time, but that was really kind of the golden era for me as a remote Dolphins fan who did not live locally, to start to be able to partake in the team more consistently, whether it was online opportunities, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, or direct TV, Sunday Ticket, or whether or not they were regionally on. Like, I lived up in Pennsylvania at the time, and Pittsburgh, because they played the Steelers, that game was actually on TV. And then the Thursday game was a primetime game. So for being a remote fan of a team that was never on TV, this year really stuck with me because it was kind of that era where you started to be able to consistently watch the game in real time more often. So I think that's probably why I associate that stretch of time so fondly with the most recent 10-year snapshot of me being a Dolphins fan. The following year, 2014, excuse me, there was one game on this list that made the cut, and it is none other than another late season December win, this one at home against the Minnesota Vikings. The Dolphins won this game on a blocked punt out of the back of the end zone in the final minute or two of action, and won the game 37-35. That kind of fashion is hard to forget, right? For them to win in that kind of way, especially in such close proximity to another game-winning safety the year before with the Wake walk-off. That game was a really fun game. And obviously there's, not a math guy, 72 points scored in that game. It's a lot of points scored. It was a very entertaining game. So I'll go ahead and give the nod to the 4th game on this list, being that Minnesota Viking win from 2014 to put the Dolphins at 8-7, only for them to give up 500 yards of offense and lose at home to the Jets in week 17 to end their season 8-8 under Joe Philbin yet again. Now, week 2015, there is one game on this list. This was the year, if you remember correctly, that Joe Philbin was brought back in kind of a lame duck situation, and he was fired after the first 4 games. The Dolphins started the year 1-3. They beat Washington, and then they lost to Jacksonville, Buffalo, and the Jets in succession. And the offense was sputtering. They were struggling with turnovers. The defense was performing horrendously. They were averaging over 400 yards of offense allowed to other teams. So you go into a week 5 bye week, you fire him, and you hire Dan Campbell. And the Titans game and the Texans game were really fun because you scored 82 points You outscored the Texans and the Titans 82-36 in those two games and had 937 yards of offense. Like, that's great. But the game that stuck with me, and the Dolphins finished this year 6-10. The game that stuck with me was the Philadelphia Eagles game in Philadelphia. And the reason why this is on my personal list of favorite Dolphins games of the last 10 years is because I was at the game wearing a white Cam Wake Dolphins jersey. And you guys know the rep for Philly fans. And I've been to professional sporting games, whether it's baseball or basketball, and rooting for the home team. And if you're a part of that environment, it's uppity and it's rowdy. And I didn't really fully appreciate the stigma of Philly fans until I, as a Dolphins fan of all teams. Like, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm not a Giants fan. I'm not a Commanders fan. I'm not some team that's ever going to be a problem for you other than once every 4 years when you play the offseason or you play the non-conference schedule, right? I'm a Dolphins fan walking into this game, and the Eagles are up 16-3 in the first quarter. And I'm getting condiments thrown on, ketchup, mustard, white Cam Wake jersey, and I'm stewing. And I wanted to leave, but my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, had gotten me these tickets along with my mom as a early Christmas present. You can't leave the game. Well, lo and behold, they came back and they won the game 20-19. There was a cameo from Mark Sanchez. The Dolphins stormed back, made it 16-13 at halftime. Jarvis Landry with the deflection touchdown. The first play of the fourth quarter was a ball that was batted straight up in the air, and Jarvis high points it and catches it for a touchdown to give him the lead. And the Dolphins hold on and end up winning that game by 1 point, despite the fact that they were grossly outplayed. Outgained 436 yards to 289 yards, lost the time of possession. They gave up significantly more third down conversions. Miami was 5 of 15 on third down. Miami was more penalized than the Eagles were, and yet they still somehow managed, in large part because they knocked Sam Bradford out of the game and Mark Sanchez had to come in. They held on to win this football game, or came back, I should say, from a 16-3 first quarter deficit to win the football game. And me, in my white Cam Wake jersey, smattered in ketchup and mustard. Happy trails to all the Eagles fans. Bid farewell, waved them all goodbye. I think it was the last guy in the section at the end of the game. So that one stuck with me for kind of the pettiness that's involved. But so you've gone through 12, 13, 14, and 15. You've gone through 4 years now. And what you have to show for it is 5 out of 15 wins. So we're almost halfway through, and we still have 10 of the wins remaining. So that's kind of some foreshadowing for what's coming up in the more recent years and how some of those games are a little bit more fun. But before we get there, I want to tell you about our friends over at rockauto.com. Rockauto.com is a family business who's been providing auto parts customers with high-quality service online for the last 20 years. So whether you're shopping for engine control modules, brake parts, taillights, motor oil, or even new carpet for your classic or your daily driver, rockauto.com has everything you need in one easy-to-navigate catalog, and in just a few clicks, you can get everything delivered directly to your front door. Best of all, price is the same at rockauto.com for both professionals and do-it-yourselfers. So why would you shop anywhere else and spend up to twice as much for the same parts? So visit rockauto.com for all your auto parts needs and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. 2016, year one of Adam Gase. The Dolphins finished 10-6. Made the playoffs for the most recent time. They lost to the Steelers 30-12. That game not on this list. But there are 2 games on this list. Week 10, the Dolphins had started the year 1-4, had climbed back to 4-4 with a 3-game win streak with wins over the Pittsburgh Steelers, Buffalo Bills, and New York Jets. And they ran wild in all 3 of those games. They had over 600 yards rushing in those 3 games combined. Did not turn the ball over at all in that stretch. So you've climbed back from hell, 1-4 to 4-4. And you go to San Diego to play the Chargers. I don't know if you guys remember this game or not, but this was the game that the Dolphins won 31-24 to move to 5-4, courtesy of 10 points in the final 3 minutes of the game. Andrew Franks kicked a 27-yard field goal to tie the game. And then Kiko Alonso, with 1 minute left in the game, had a 60-yard pick six of Phillip Rivers to win the football game. And again, not math, guys, but 60 yards from the line of scrimmage. The Chargers were in position to win the game in the final minute. And it's that swing of emotion that came with that made it such an impactful game for me, for the Dolphins to bounce back against all odds. You lost, or you won the turnover battle 4-1. You were penalized 11 times for 81 yards. And Kiko Alonso comes through with probably his signature play as a Miami Dolphin as far as good plays and good performance on the field, and gets you to 5-4. You proceed to win your next two. You stay out west. You play the Los Angeles Rams. You win 14-10 on a late touchdown pass to Devontae Parker from Tannehill in the end zone in the rain in the last moments of the game. You had 240 yards of offense, so that was a defensive struggle. And then you beat San Francisco. You get shellacked by Baltimore because, of course, why would you not? You almost always do. More on Baltimore in a little bit here on Favorite Dolphins Wins the last 10 years. And then you beat Arizona 26-23. Ryan Tannehill gets injured. Matt Moore comes in, goes hog wild against the Jets. You're at 9-5. And now we get to the favorite win, the second favorite win of the 2016 season, the playoff campaign. And that was the overtime win against the Buffalo Bills, 34-31. Jay Ajayi ripping off that big run in overtime to position the Dolphins to kick the extra point. I will never forget. It was New Year's Eve, and I had my phone, right? And I was not able to watch the game because we went to a Christmas Eve service and then went to my girlfriend, now wife's extended family's house for a Christmas party. And I see the ebbs and flows of the game, right? So I'm living vicariously through the push notifications and updates on my phone. The Dolphins, they are up in this game 28-14 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And here come the Bills. And they score a touchdown. Then they kick a field goal. And then they score another touchdown with 1 minute and 20 seconds left. So the Dolphins in 16 minutes went from up 14 to down 3. And it's super demoralizing. You say, oh boy, here we go again. They're going to mess it up. We're going to miss the playoffs. And the playoff drought is going to continue. Well, Andrew Franks, 55-yard field goal in overtime. And then, or to send you to overtime. And then Franks kicks a 27-yard field goal after that big run by Jay Ajayi, who had 32 carries for 206 yards. I don't think we honor that Jay Ajayi campaign enough. I know Dolphins fans appreciate the effort he put forward, but the Dolphins don't make the playoffs without Jay Ajayi that year. And 32 for 206, a lot of that coming on a 57-yard run in overtime to put you in position to kick the game-winning field goal and lock you in at 10 wins. Greatest Christmas gift I got that year was that Dolphins dub. And I remember it was about halfway through overtime, and my wife's uncle is a Dolphins fan and happened to find it on TV and put it on. And I came scurrying in. I'm sitting down and we're watching the game together. And it was a lot of fun. So those two games, the Chargers Week 10 and the Bills Week 16 win from that playoff campaign, also stuck with me as well. 2017, this was, of course, the lost year of Dolphins football as it pertained to the quarterback position. And we had the Jay Cutler, Matt Moore, David Fales experience. Prefer not to think too hard about it. And I'm not going to honor or recognize any of the games from this 6-10 campaign. It was just a season that, despite the fact that you started 4-2, you beat the Chargers in week 1 on the missed field goal at the end of regulation to steal a win against the Chargers. And then you had the wins against the Titans, Falcons, and Jets. Then you, on Thursday night, lose 40-0 to Baltimore. And it's kind of this sobering reality. And then you rip off 4 more losses in a row and you're 4-7. No, there's no need to acknowledge any of it other than that. Shout out to the Dolphins offense for turnovers, though. 29 turnovers that year on offense. Here are the turnovers by week. And I just want to give this its proper due before we move on and get into some more favorite games, because we have 2 favorite wins from 2018. 0, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 5, 3, 3, 0, 3, 2, 1. The Jay Cutler, David Fales, Matt Moore experience. And I love Matt Moore, just like Tyreek Hill. But that was rough. That was a rough year. 2018, also a rough season, but for the emotional torment that came with it, you start the year 3-0, then you're 4-2, suddenly you're 5-6, then you win a couple in a row, you go to 6-6 and 7-6. The Bears game week 6, the overtime win, was a very memorable one for me to watch as well. Miami scoring relentlessly on explosive plays to make this thing a game. The Bears were up 21-10 in the third quarter, halfway through. Miami gets stood up in the red zone. They have to kick a field goal. Then Albert Wilson did Albert Wilson, like prime Albert Wilson thing. He had the 43-yard touchdown catch and run from Brock Osweiler to tie the game. The Bears, with 3 minutes left, score a 29-yard touchdown pass from Trubisky to Anthony Miller. They go up 7. The next play from scrimmage is 316 seconds later. The Dolphins go 75 yards on an Albert Wilson catch and run. And then in overtime, with 0 seconds left in overtime, despite the fact that they tried to give the game away late, I believe somebody fumbled down in the red zone and they recovered the ball. And it almost took the points off the board. But Jason Sanders kicked a 47-yard field goal with no time left in regulation to push the Dolphins to 4-2. Memorable win. But not as memorable, of course, as the Miami Miracle, which is the second game from 2018. That game, of course, pushed the Dolphins to 7-6 before they lost their final 3 games of the season in demoralizing fashion. Offensive yardage, 193, 183, 225, while scoring 17, 7, and 17, while giving up 41, 17, and 42 to eventually have Adam Gase relieved of his duties as the head coach of the football team. But regardless, the Miami Miracle, of course, was the high point of this season. It really energized you for a potential push across the back half of December to maybe make some noise. Of course, that didn't happen. But anytime you win a game in the kind of fashion that the Dolphins won that football game, it's going to stick with you, as that game stuck with me and so many of you as well, which leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to go. So we have 10 games through 8 years, which means we've got 5 games over the next 2 years. So this last 3 years. There's 3 years. Again, not a math guy, but 6 games across the last 3 years. It's been a good stretch of Dolphins football for memorable football games. It's also a good stretch anytime you infuse some Built Bar into your day. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. These things are high in protein, high in fiber, low in calories, low in sugar. They have 100% chocolate on all of their bars. And right now, you can visit Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to save 15% off your next order. That is Built.com, promo code LOCK15 to save 15% off your next order of the world's most delicious protein bar. 2019, first instinct was to gloss right over it. There's a couple games that I had a lot of fun watching in here. That Eagles game was a lot of fun. The Colts win was stressful. The Bengals game was stressful for a lot of different reasons, between the draft implications and the Dolphins going up big in that game, and then you're excited that they're going to win, and then the Bengals come all the way back and force overtime, and they say, well, maybe you should just lose it and see what happens week 17. No, none of that happened. Dolphins won that football game in overtime. They had 502 yards of offense, 406 passing yards, 38 points scored. Fun game, all things considered. But in the lexicon of Dolphins wins, it was the late win against New England in Foxborough, week 17, to knock the Patriots out of a postseason bye, having them play the Titans in the first round of the playoffs and get stomped by Tennessee, kind of like playing that role in the split between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and ending that tenure of Patriots dominance in the AFC East, and knowing that the Dolphins had like a small piece of that history by how they beat New England in Foxborough with a postseason bye on the line, week 17. That's tough to beat. That was the one game that stuck with me. And of course, that created all of this energy and momentum going into the following offseason, in which the Dolphins would then go on to win 19 games over the next two seasons, not without its ups and downs, not without its trials and tribulations, not without its weak points, not without its frustrations for us as fans. But just knowing what that win would catapult you to over the next 2 years, as far as wins and losses goes, really helped sell it to me. In 2020, the Dolphins go 10-6, missed the playoffs with the late season, the week 17 loss to the Buffalo Bills. But this season had three of my favorite Dolphins wins over the last 10 years. The first one being the Rams game. And the reason why it was the Rams game was because it was my first game at Hard Rock Stadium to watch the Dolphins play. I'd been to Hard Rock to see the Canes play for college scouting for the Draft Network, but I had not been there to watch the Dolphins play. Every other time, remember, I'm a Northeast guy. I'd seen him in Philly. I'd seen him in Cleveland. But getting a chance to see them in Miami, this was the first time. And they won that game 28-17. They had 145 yards of offense. The Rams had 471 yards of offense, but a lot of that was garbage time. Dolphins playing soft because they had a defensive touchdown. They had an offensive touchdown that was set up by another defensive turnover. They had a special teams touchdown. And it was like this total team victory that just made it like a really unique game, like a really unique, dominant performance against Jared Goff and the Rams. That really made it a fun first experience for me at Hard Rock Stadium. The following week, I remember I was at home. The Cardinals hosted the Dolphins, and Miami won this game on a late field goal. And then Arizona missed a tying field goal at the end of regulation. And this game was really stuck with me too, because obviously it was a strong performance from Tua Tagovailoa. You scored 34 points offensively. It was Tua's second start. It was this battle with Kyler Murray. Murray was unstoppable. The Cardinals had 26 first downs in the game, and they really got after you. And you were chasing the game the entire way. And then you throw the touchdown pass to Mac Hollins to put you in a position to win the football game. And that, obviously, having a rookie quarterback starting his second career game and having that kind of performance creates a lot of enthusiasm for what could be. And whether or not Tua eventually realizes that potential or not, we'll find out. But it made it a very memorable game for me, because you're sitting here thinking, man, like, is he going to do this every week? Because this was magical stuff that he did in that showcase against Arizona. And then you also had the Raiders game, which I don't think should be a surprise to anybody that the Raiders game was on this list. The Fitz Christmas Miracle, week 16, face mask ripped off, his head's backwards. He completes the pass to Matt Collins, gets the extra 15. The Dolphins snatch victory from the jaws of defeat in what was a very back and forth final, 6 minutes of regulation. Just a really fun football game. Of course, it would have been heartbreaking. And you're sitting here watching the Raiders bleed down the clock to kick a field goal to take the lead. And it's like, what a gut punch for the season the Dolphins had when they started 1-3 and they came roaring all the way back. And, you got to play the Bills the following week. And it's like, man, what a tough way to have this season kind of cut off the chase. And it was even more tough the following week because once that happened, you're like, man, like the Dolphins are so owed this kind of season. Like they're so due. And us as fans, like we're going to get our dues eventually. And it will make it very sweet when that happens. But you thought it was coming then because that Raiders game, the end of it was so magical, and that game really will stick with me for a long time. And then 2021, two games that I was at, Baltimore. What was that? That was Thursday night football, right? Just knowing how Miami had always struggled with Baltimore. And then Lamar Jackson comes in, and the Dolphins are kind of reeling, and they managed to eke out a win against Houston with Brissett the previous Sunday. And Baltimore's coming in, and their record's strong at the time. And of course, injuries took their toll on the Ravens, and they fell apart down the stretch, and they finished 8-9. But just the defensive dominance, the double birds FU mentality that Miami's defense brought in that stretch of play, and just how Baltimore was so desperate to find any answers for Blitz Zero and couldn't find them, was the most, I think, out of all the games that I've ever been to across all levels of football, probably the most dominant unit performance I've seen ever. And that was what makes that game, obviously, aside of being there and having a couple of my personal friends with me there as well, such a memorable game. And then I was also at the Week 18 game this year where the Dolphins won against the New England Patriots, and they jumped on top of them early with the Xavier Howard pick six and the opening script for the Dolphins that had a ton of touches for Jalen Waddle to get him the rookie record, and had a chance to sit in the radio box with Jason Taylor for the first half of the game. And he was very gracious to share that space with me and kind of let me partake in him calling the game on the call for the first half of the football game, and just so many different reasons why that's a game that I will hold near and dear to my heart. And then obviously when you're 1-7 and you win that game to go 9-8, have a winning season, your second consecutive winning season for the first time in 20 years. You think about what that catapult and springboard can look like. And amidst the coaching and personnel changes that you've made, if it has the same springboard effect as what the 2019 win against New England had, then we're going to have ourselves a really fun season this season. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is obviously a little bit less analytical, a little bit more fan oriented from yours truly and my story of being a Dolphins fan. But this is the time of year that we get to do some of this kind of stuff and have a little bit of fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for checking out Locked On Dolphins. Fins up, your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We don't just say it, we live it. So make sure you hit subscribe, come back, see me.